Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a tank review, and today I've been sort of avoiding this, so I wasn't sure how it was going to go for me. The BZ-176, Chinese Tier 8 premium tank that was just released with the boxes. Now, we got a little bit of extra information about this line itself, although it hasn't been released. This is the premium Tier 8, as I said, in the Christmas boxes, which has rocket boosters, baby. Press X and you go fast. You can do that 4 times. It's also got a big derp gun. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go. A Hesh type round that does a bunch of damage and actually has more pen than the standard round, which is fun, I guess. The news is that the Tier 9 and 10 of the Tech Tree line have had that gun removed, the derp gun HE mechanic. And I don't know if there's a comparable HE shell in the standard gun of those two tanks, but it was deemed that gun, I guess, was too powerful. But you know what? We still have the premium, because why not? Awesome stuff. This tank, my friends, if you watch nothing else on this video, has immediately stepped into the top 3 best premium tank in the game. Not perhaps, at the very least top 5. That is early numbers, but we'll go over the numbers because they're impressive, and I don't think they're going to change a whole bunch. But let's say it does slip a little bit. It's at least a top 5. And that's pretty impressive for a premium these days, to jump right into Skoda T56 territory, which is what this thing did pretty much immediately. As of right now, every skill level is overperforming in this tank, and we're going to talk about why. Is it good? Yeah. Is it kind of fun? Yeah. Is it good for the game? Nope. It is not good for the game. It is good for selling boxes. That has to be said. Now, I don't generally go off on stuff like that, and we'll just mention it here in the preamble about that. I get it. Companies want to make money. They have to release tanks that are compelling. They have to release tanks. Wargaming has to release tanks that are compelling for them to continue to sell boxes, keep the servers going, all that good stuff. But we've really overtuned this thing, and it's just not going to get fixed because they refuse to fix premium and reward tanks. That's just the honest truth of what's going to happen with this thing. We will see. In 6 months to a year, maybe I have to eat my words and it drops out of the top 5 or so. But I really don't think so, unless it gets nerfed. Or we just release some more powerful tanks. We could do that. Let's talk about it, though. All of the whining and gnashing of teeth aside, what do we have? A Chinese Tier 8 heavy, fairly low slung, mid-turreted, lots of angles, lots of armor, rockets, you can see them on the back right there. 4 times we can go really fast, and a big boom boom gun. There you go. This was apparently something the Chinese looked at in order to give a burst of speed to tanks. I don't know how far along in development this got, but there you go. It has rockets. I can't stop laughing every time I think about it. Somebody said, and I thought this was very appropriate, it is a kind of game mechanic that would come out of a mode like Steel Hunter, where you have super turbo boosts and all of these kind of power-ups and stuff. This is very much a FPS kind of idea that's been brought into the main game. Now, we've had a lot of those things slip into the main game along the way, so to speak, and we've got used to a lot of these things, and I hate saying it is what it is, but basically it is. All right, let's take a look at how I had this set up. I had a pretty good crew. It's got a commander, gunner, a driver, and loader. As I recall, the commander is the radio operator. Let's make sure for you guys. And he is, so a pretty standard setup, which is nice as far as crew goes. That's all good. I am running a turbo. I've got a IA, and I've got a rammer. The turbo does work with the rocket, so it adds the extra speed, and then the rocket is on top of that. All right, so it stacks with the turbo right there. The IA is to help tame the horrible gun depression, although it's not as horrible as you might think, nor is it as horrible as it should be. And I have a rammer because it's a very long reload, so you're going to get some pretty good bang for the buck out of a rammer. I have 10 regular AP, 20 Hesh things. We'll talk about that in a moment. I'm running large kits, and I am running food. Once again, with Brothers in Arms, food, and the IA, trying to tame the gun into something that is more or less usable. And I think I did, because we're going to get a .39 out of that thing right there. See, the crew is pretty good, and it matches up the WZ-111 5A thing. All right, WZ-111 5A, that's the tier 10. So let's take a look at how it's doing overall. All right, so far we got the tier 8s. I've got the last 60. This is on NA. Win rate wise, we're down at number 5. All right, so the Gonzalo, Peregrine, and Skoda all doing better. On the DPG, we have slid right easily into the 3rd position. Frags, we are at fourth position. Damage ratio, we are at 3rd position right there. Kill to death, we're at 3rd position. Survival, it actually took the 2nd place crown out from the 100-01, which had sat there for quite a long time. So it is surviving, it is doing damage, and it is winning. It is right into a top 5 tier 8 tank pretty much immediately. And this is impressive because it is played nearly twice as much as the Skoda. Nearly twice as much, and easily, what, 3 times as much as the Lerva, which is the next one there. So a lot of people have it. It's across all skill bands, and it is still at the top of all the stats. It is doing quite well. Again, I will say, I could be wrong. We will see in 6 months to a year where this thing sits. I don't think it drops out of the top 5, but I've been wrong before. That's the facts and what we got going on at the ground level right now. As far as a comparison amongst its peers, I don't even really know where to start with the comparison. It's got a very strong turret, and it's got a Hesh round kind of deal going on. So I picked the Gonzalo just for giggles. That actually happens to be a pretty good tank based on stats. The Skoda, of course, which is sort of the class of the class at the top. And the Renegade, which is a solid cyclical gun with a good turret. So, I mean, I guess you could go with an OHO or something like that, but it's not even worth comparing the two because they're not even in the same league. This is really is a tier 8.5 tank right here. So we're looking at 650 alpha. We are going to put the Hesh round or the other rounds in both the BZ, the HE rounds, into the BZ and the Gonzalo in just a second. We'll talk about it. But this is the standard rounds or the AP damage right here. Alpha at 650. I mean, come on. 208 pen is pretty good. Not amazing, but pretty good for that round. Gonzalo at 440. Of course, you got the Skoda with the double 460, and then the Renegade dropping the 360, but with a relatively fast firing rate, because when we drop down here we can see that at 23.97 you're waiting a long time. We can drop even further down and note immediately that its DPM is low amongst these. It's at 1,627 with a 0.44 dispersion. That is Gonzalo level. It's better than the Skoda, which is bad, and quite a bit worse than the Renegade. And the aiming time is quite long at 3.36, but it's got a -10 depression. It has 250 millimeters of turret armor. It has 240 on the upper side of a well-angled plate, 152 on the sides. This thing is just a little pillbox running around. You will note the size of it. It's very square, very compact. The turret's in the middle. It really has a lot going for it with that -10 gun depression. It is a hard nut to crack, especially if it's hold down or ridge fighting. Absolutely difficult. Let's go back though, because we'll note that we've got 1,600 DPM, worse than the rest of these. We'll go ahead and configure this with the Hesh round guy. We'll go ahead and apply that. We'll do the same for the Gonzalo, and we'll see what happens then between those two particular tanks. So we come back out of this, we got a 225 pen, which is better than the AP round, and the Gonzalo has a worse pen for its round, but only at 430 alpha, and this thing goes to 800. That brings us up to a 2,000 DPM, which is on par with the Renegade and the Skoda, or at least closer than the old 16 was. Not quite as much as the Gonzalo, which is one of the reasons the Gonzalo sits so high on that. Is good players can really make use of these Hesh rounds because they know how to know how to aim, know where to hit, all that good stuff. So it is not an automatic upgrade to your DPM to start shooting that round. It does take a little more care, but at the same time, because of the vagaries of DPM, of dispersion, and RNG, and pen, and all this good stuff, randomly, for every player, it's going to do these crazy damage shots. Okay? And I don't exactly mean randomly, but because it's just, on occasion, you're going to get that really big payoff, right? Yes, you can increase your capability to do that by good aiming, by good gameplay, by good positioning, by good trading. All of those things are important. But even a bad player on occasion is going to find himself in a good position, and he gets a good pen roll or a good dispersion hit in terms of where it hits the tank. He's going to be paid off with that 800 alpha blap. Okay, that's just the way it is. It's a good round. It really is. And with a little care, you can actually get pretty good with it. I'll show you what my dispersion is after I put all the equipment and stuff on it in just a minute. All right. What else? I talked about the armor already. It's insane. Rockets. Rockets Red Glare, my friends. The Rockets Red Glare. This thing is only doing 30. It's the lowest among the ones I've picked. That's quite low even among heavies. We're talking not quite oh-ho speed, but not a whole bunch more. So it's very sluggish. Howsomever, you have 4 blasts or 4 rocket actuations with the X button for 10 seconds each with a cooldown in between of 3 or 4 seconds. And that is going to boost you up to 45 plus the turbo, so around 50. That allows this thing to get into positions doing 50 that many, many heavies cannot get to. Say you put a turbo on the Skoda, he's doing 40. All right, so there are some negatives. It is very difficult to turn when you have the rockets going. You can't really stop very well. I think you can actually go 1 kilometer an hour backwards. So you can stop, but you're not going to be able to go backwards very well until the rockets stop. However, in that straight line, in that initial positioning, in that run to an initial position at the beginning of the game, you hit that X and this dude is doing 50. And then you cool down for 3 or 4 seconds and you hit again and you're doing 50 again. About 2 actuations for most maps are going to get you where you want to be, and you are going to show up to places where a tank with that much armor and that big of a gun is going to be absolutely brutal. Think, for example, mines. You're able to get that gun up into the approach into the hill right there and just blast somebody in the side. Or even just zing right up to the hill. So there's about 1,000 other examples of that. Additionally, if you're able to keep the rockets a couple charges or 2 later on in the game, and I'll show you an example of that in the replay, you'll have some opportunities then to get places very quickly that you might want to get to, or to run away, potentially. So there are some options, but you've only got 4. Use them wisely. 380 on the view range, which is about the same other than the Renegade there. All right, so what do we have here? It has everything. The only thing it sort of doesn't have is accuracy and DPM to some extent. But we have learned in this game, and I've been talking about this for years, that DPM is not necessarily king as long as you have a lot of other things to help out with it. And this thing has all of those other things. The armor to stay in there, the hold down, the gun depression, all that good stuff. And when you do hit with it, it is very painful. It is extremely painful. And even in tier 10s, this thing can put a real hurting on weak spots by shooting that big round. All right, let's see how mine is set up and what we're looking like here. With the, what is this? Improved combat rations with an IA with Brothers in Arms, I have brought my dispersion down to 0.39. So it is not a sniper by any means, but 0.39 is doable. It brings me up to a 1,931 with the AP round. Not too bad. Minus 10 depression. Gun loading's down to 20 seconds, so 20.2 seconds. I've shaved about 3 seconds or so off the gun loading there. And that's pretty much all of the things that are affected, other than you'll see that I am running a turbo, which is going to get my standard speed up here to 34. And when I hit the rocket, 51. Right? 17 backwards is also not bad with the turbo. Oh, dog has come in. Is also not bad with the turbo. So let's take a look at some gameplay. This is not my game. This is a game I got actually off of Watt Replays. I'm doing fine in mine. I've only taken 6 battles so far. What are we doing? 83%, so I'm 5-1, I guess, is the math on that thing. Doing quite well, but that's a low sample size. I just want to show you this game because it's interesting on some of the things that this guy does. All right, gameplay. This is a tier 8 and 7 game, as you can see right here. We're on Prokhorovka Dorf spawned into the north, and this is Toxic Drips, which is actually an anonymized name. Or is it? I don't know. I can never tell if it's really their name or not. I should look at it. But now that I'm looking at World of Tanks replays, the name is Toxic. Toxic Drips Too Hard. I don't know. Maybe it is the person's real name. Doesn't matter. He or she is in the BZ-176. Top tier on Proc Himmelsdorf. So I got this off of Watt Replays. I just looked at it again. It is still the #1 damage uploaded anyway for a BZ-176 uploaded to Watt Replays. The Su-130 is actually #1 currently right now. We have a Bat Chat Barask at 9,500 damage. Then a Suma. Then we have a BZ. Then we have a BZ. Then we have a Skoda T56. Then we have a BZ, and a Skoda T56. So of the top 10, the BZ owns about 5 or so, 4 or 5 of those. Really meant to show you. Let me just do that right there, right? All right, so we got Su-130, BZ, that's one of them. Burr, Suma, another BZ, that's 2. Another BZ, 3. Skoda, BZ, 4, 5. So 5 of the top looks like, what is that, 8? 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. Math in public is really hard, my friends, really hard. So let's see what we got going on here. We've got a Bounty Turbo, we have a Bounty Rammer, and a Bounty Vert Stab. So he has gone away from the IA and decided to take the Vert Stab and use the benefit of, you know, turning and having less dispersion loss while moving, turning, all that good stuff. Fair enough. Let's see what happens here. 9 seconds, 8 seconds. All right, we're already in mid burner, right? He hits the afterburners, and this is what I was talking about. Look how far away he is from the Skoda T56 already. Doing 52 kilometers an hour right now with that bad boy. And we're headed for the ridge. And this is what I was talking about. The ability for this thing to get into positions that you would otherwise not expect a heavy tank to be getting into. He's got 3 seconds left of the burst. Sorry, less than 3 seconds. So it's a 3-second reload. I said 4 or 5. I was wrong. It's 3. He's going to save it. Very interesting. He doesn't use it. Now, that's probably a wise move because he had 10 seconds left when he hit it. Or he would have 10 seconds and he would have started it back here. That's enough to probably put him up and over the hill. So he'd have to ram on his brakes and not really be able to do anything but sit there and stop from moving forward. And he's going to save it because he's going to use that capability a little bit later in a very interesting way. Break, there is no artillery in this game. That is going to really help a tank like this and any of the heavies who want to come up here and do ridge fighting, but he's got the turret and the gun depression at -10 to be very effective up here. Take artillery out of it, and he doesn't have to worry about getting spanked. But of course, the other heavies in the game are going to start doing the same thing. He is facing 2 other BZs in a platoon, so it's just him versus 2 BZs. Obviously, the other tanks are in there as well. So he comes up here, gets lit. He's looking for a shot. I'm going to try to sneak a shot into this guy. Schlap. All right, 426. Not bad, not bad. He's carrying 25 of the Hesh round. He's got 5 of the AP. He's got his stuff in weird positions, although we have talked about that on occasion. He's got his repair kit on 4, and he's got his small first aid kit on 6. Looks like they're both small, actually, I believe. Could be wrong. Maybe that's a large down there. Notice it's a large repair kit. Notice it's a long reload, a long zoom in. Blap. 811, my friends. 811 damage into the side of the poor, unsuspecting AMBT. Hits, gets a pen. There was dispersion in RNG there to some extent. Shooting into the side of something is going to endanger you in terms of hitting the tracks and all kinds of things that Hesh doesn't like. But he got that pen and absolutely spanked that guy. See how we do with this shot. Oh, guy stopped backing up, so we shoot right behind him. Long reload, though, folks. I mean, just look how long this takes. However, he has 2 hits right now in pens for 1,237 damage. And we're going to get up to 9,000 damage. Look out, Super Hellcat. 714 to Mr. Super Hellcat. 1,951 damage. Yep. Now these shots in this position, it's a good position. These shots would be there for anybody. But just remember the amount of damage he's absolutely slapping these guys with. 780. Absolutely fantastic. Doing some good work on the hill. His guys on the 1-2 line, there aren't very many. There's that long reload kind of working against him. Let's see if we can put another shot into one of these guys. 697. He's done 3,428 damage. Most of it to the guys on the hill. Meanwhile, his 1-2 line is running into a bit of trouble. The Alpine Tiger, you'll notice he's got into the middle. And pretty quickly, old Toxic here is going to realize that he's in a bit of a bad situation. 793 that time. Remember when I said this tank wasn't really a sniper? Given just a little bit of dispersion help, careful aiming, and tanks that are giving you their entire side to shoot at, it can be a serviceable, at times, sniper kind of tank. So he's going to come up here, see if he can continue to work over these guys. Notice that his 1-2 line is collapsing. Guys are running away. This is going to put him in a bit of a dangerous situation. 898. 898. He's got 5,119 damage. Really, the only reason his guys have not been obliterated is him. But they collapse. They collapse. They have a low hit point. Was it Caliban sitting there at Carnarvon? He's starting to get guys behind him, so he's going to start getting shot in the back if he's not careful. Takes a look at the Alpine Tiger, and this is interesting right here. Boom! Hits X. He had 3 charges left. Look at the way he can reposition right here. Takes a hit from the other BZ. Let's talk about that. So the other BZ shoots at him with the Hesh thingy, but only does 63, because sometimes if you hit the big armor, and it shows a big hole right there, but that hole has nothing to do with the amount of damage he took. He only took 63 out of that right there. Takes a stab back, and he's in a bit of trouble, right? He's in a bit of trouble. The 2 other BZs are on the 5-6 line. His 1-2 guys ran away, and he's sitting out here in the middle. So he just hits the rocket boosters, baby. Let's just leave. We'll just rocket boost our way out of this little situation. His team is in a tough spot. Oh, okay, took a hit that time. That was off the gun. And pretty quickly here, he decides, you know what, this is not really great. I don't think I like this very much. I have one more charge in the old rocket booster action. Badoosh, and we'll just run away. Look, he's doing 52, man. He's talk about a retreating machine. Given the right situation, the ability to do it like he did. Repositions across. Probably wasted the one a little bit in terms of what he was trying to do. Decided against sticking around and bailed out. Gonna take a shot here. I don't remember if he actually takes that shot. Trying to put it, maybe drop it on the top of the roof or something there. Misses that. Probably waited a little longer than he wanted to. And we'll fall back. So we're at 5,119. So we use our rocket booster to get in to a position you wouldn't necessarily expect a heavy tank to be. It doesn't help him a whole bunch. Doesn't really get any shots out of it. If somebody had been there quickly or he'd been able to come up over, he might have surprised somebody. But then the whole reposition and runaway thing is aided by a lot, or I don't know. Am I trying to say something? I'm trying to say something. It is aided a lot. I needed a better word than a lot, but we're going to stick with that. It aided a lot by the rocket boosters. And he's going to do a last stand here. This is actually going to turn into a loss, so he gets 9,000 out of this in a loss. Back in the corner. His team's doing not so good. Slap this guy, I believe. That was only 191. So that's the first time, really, other than that first shot at about 400 damage, that he didn't get a nice pen out of it. Shooting into the front armor. Didn't quite pen the guy. Alpine's wandering along. He's got 826 hit points. We get a side turret and we just go, hello. 800. Yep. 6,136. This is a situation where he's protected from most shots. He's hold down right here. I don't know why the A44 is just sitting there ready for him to hit him. He really has no hope of pinning him. Drops 761 on the poor A44. We're at 6,897. Challenger sits out in the open for some unknown reason. Quite a long reload, so we're going to wait. We'll come up and go, oh, hi, how you doing, man? What's happening? What up? Okay, there you go. Yep. 7,236 damage. Clearly, RNG/dispersion was on our hero's side today. Those long-range shots pretty much all hit, minus 1 or 2. Got one bad roll. I would say the 400 wasn't necessarily a bad roll. The 100 was a bad roll in terms of pen and whatnot. Then you got a poor JP. He's like, oh, I have 100 or 850 hit points. And then our hero's like, no, you don't. You don't have it. Where'd all my hit points go? Well, we released this silly tank. 8,086 damage. Look out, IS-3. Be careful. Look out, my friend. What the heck kind of low roll is that? Stupid game. 600 damage. I don't know how many shots he took. I didn't talk about it, but the gold round is around, I want to say, 7,200 credits. Look out, Scorpion G. 893. Oh, man. And we finally die. And we finally die with 9,579 damage. All right. Cherry picking. This is the best game in terms of damage that I could find on WhatReplays.com. Not saying every time someone's going to roll out with 9,579, but I think you see when things are working for this tank, it's pretty ridiculous. And it's got a lot of things that can save it from itself. But we'll get to that when we wrap it up. Well, what have we? I don't know. If you looked at the card, you'll notice that in that game he had about 1,100 experience. He was sharing quite a bit with those long-range shots up on the hill, although he did end up with a lot of damage and netted over 300,000 credits. I'm looking at another game in the top 10 that I was discussing earlier. This guy had 10 kills. He had a base 2,303 experience. That's base. Did 9,010 kills, so must have been up close and personal doing his damage. But he was also running in a Tier 7 and Tier 8 game. You know, it's not a case of the next tank that's going to destroy the game. We don't have to get that dramatic about it. Do I wish it wasn't in the game? Yeah, I could do without tanks like this in the game, to be quite honest with you. The line is supposed to come out in January, is my understanding, with the new patch. Also, from what I understand, they stripped the guns, the HE derp gun action off of those other tanks. So I don't know if they were separate guns on the tech tree versions. And I don't know if there's still a big damage Hesh round going to be happening, but it sounds like not. So now I was going to say we're stuck, but I guess we really are. It looks like this is going to be kind of a one-off, potentially, with this kind of game mechanic. And it's unfortunate because it's a premium that people just spent money for with the boxes, and there ain't no way this thing is going to get adjusted. And it needs it. It needs it as long as the day is longerness. I couldn't come up with a saying right there on the fly. It needs to be nerfed. It won't be. It 100% needs to be. You are going to see these in. They're going to basically be in every Tier 8 game you play. That's an exaggeration. Clearly, there'll be some where they're not. But it will become, and it is right now, one of the more common tanks to see running around. And it has definitely just slotted itself into the top 3 to 5 Tier 8 heavy tanks in the game. And you're just not going to get away from this thing. And God help you when you face it against Tier 6s, because it just isn't a lot of fun. It really isn't. It's unfortunate. I think they were hasty in introducing this thing into the game. I think the rockets are interesting, but it's not needed. Like, you could leave this tank without the rockets and it would still be a monster. People would probably not play it as much because the good players would not be able to get into position early enough like they like to. That's one of the critical things about this beast, is it can get into some of those situations that you just don't want to meet this thing in, and it's got the rocket power to make it happen. We'll see what happens in 6 months. Let me know what you think down there in the comments. This is probably going to be pretty controversial, a pretty controversial tank. I did want to wait, like I said at the beginning, to sort of let things settle down a little bit, although we've only been 2 weeks into it. I didn't want to immediately jump onto any bandwagons with this thing. I will be honest with you, I thought it wouldn't be quite that good based on some of the stats with the gun, but from what I can tell and the way it's performing across the entire spectrum of players, it's just a very good tank. It really is. There's no other way to put it. So let me know what you think down below. That's all I've got. Thanks for checking out my review of the BZ-176, a tank that I could do without. See ya.